When you think about commercial real estate, the first picture that probably comes to your mind, it's a big office, warehouse, or maybe a retail building. But what if I tell you that there are hybrid spaces out there where you can have an office, a warehouse, and even a showroom in the same place? These places are called flex spaces. And in this video, I'm gonna show you the pros and cons of investing in this specific type of asset. So stick around to find out more. Okay, so let's take a look of some pros and cons of these flex spaces, this specific type of asset. Let's start with the pros. The first pro of a flex space, as the name says, it's space flexibility. Think about it, you can have an office and a warehouse and a showroom in the same place. So this is very useful for this small business that they don't want to, or they can't afford to get an office and then a warehouse and then a showroom. So this with the flex spaces, they can have it all for one lease. Okay, so for example, what type of businesses you have as tenants here? It's like a roofing company, a construction company, or maybe if they sell furniture, for example, they can sell furniture and have they can have an office for their operation personnel, and then they can have a warehouse and they can have a showroom in the same place. Okay, so that's the type of tenants you can have in this type of place. The second pro you have for flex space is they are very easy to build. They are easy to build. Since you are not having like manufacturing here, in most of the cases, these are like services companies, like, as I told you, construction companies, plumbing companies, electricians, okay? So they don't do any work, any job there inside of the office or the warehouse, okay? They just store things and then they go out to the city. So these are service companies, okay? So you don't need a lot of, for example, electricity in place, or for example, a big sewer or a big amounts of waters, okay? Because they are not manufacturing, they are not building something inside, okay? They just want it practically as an office. You maybe have a restroom there, okay? But for example, if you have a manufacturing building, you have to be sure that you have the amount of electricity or energy for that place, okay? Because this company use a lot of energy. This type of companies that are in the industrial, even in the warehouse or the manufacturing spaces. But for flex spaces, you can have like simple infrastructure, like for example, like for an office building, okay? So this makes the land cheaper because you can go to the outskirts of the city and you can find cheap land there, okay? Probably out of the city limits, you can find cheap land to build some places here, okay? And also, you don't have high clearings, okay? You don't have like a very resistant soil, like a very resistant floor, okay? So it's cheaper than a manufacturing or maybe a warehouse building, okay? So the third thing, it's budget friendly for small business, small and medium business. As I mentioned, this business, they don't have to rent an office and then rent a warehouse and then rent a retail or a showroom. They can have it all in the same place. So these are perfect spaces for this type of businesses. So that's why they are budget friendly for this. Even if the rents are a little bit higher than manufacturing or with the warehouse spaces, it's still budget friendly for this type of business, because also it's a small space. It's not that big and they have all their necessities inside, okay? The fourth point is they have higher rents than a warehouse or manufacturing, okay? Why they have higher rents? Because they have, like, for example, they have more office space. Usually flex spaces are 70% warehouse and 30% office. That makes you to charge higher rents because they have more office space. And since they have, you know, a warehouse, they don't have beautiful floors or beautiful walls and everything and paint. So when you have an office, usually you can charge higher rents. Okay, so the more office you have, you usually charge higher rents. Okay, so then we have, for these spaces, we have lower vacancies. Okay, so why we have lower vacancies? Because most of the businesses out there are small businesses. Even if you think maybe Amazon is a big business and they have a lot of warehouses, yes, but big businesses are fewer. Okay, are not big numbers for big companies. So for small and medium businesses, they are everywhere. So that's why you have lower vacancies. Usually in every market you look around, you will find lower vacancies on the flex spaces than the logistics or manufacturing spaces. Most of the markets is that way. Okay, so then we have also had the higher cap rates. Okay, you may say that's a con, because when you have higher cap rates, that means the asset costs less, and so you can sell it for less amount of money. Okay, but that's good for you as an investor if you want to have a good cash flow, because you will have you will buy cheaper, and then you will have more cash flow for your investment. Okay, so you have higher cap rates here. And why you have higher cap rates? Because the tenant cap rates is very related with tenants, and since the tenants are small, it's more risk. Okay, it's more risk than, for example, a manufacturing or a logistic building that you can just rent. For example, a 200,000 square feet manufacturing building that you can just rent to Amazon or Walmart, or I don't know. So you can rent all this, the whole building, to a single company. That's not the case in the flex space. You have to rent the building to multiple tenants. So that's why you have more risk and then higher cap rate. Okay, but you also have loyal tenants. Okay, you have loyal tenants because usually these tenants, when they move in and they have offices, they make some build outs. Okay, sometimes, depending on the market, sometimes they negotiate that you pay at least a part of those build outs. Okay, but most of the cases they invest some money on the build outs, so they want to stay in more than they will renew the lease most of the times, because they already invest in the building. So you also have less competition on the flex space. Okay, because all the other big investors, big funds, are outside trying to purchase either logistics or manufacturing buildings. They are not very interested in the flex spaces, because flex space is more risky, and also it's more local tenant. They don't know the tenants. They prefer the big funds. They want to invest where they know the tenants. If they know Amazon, if they know Walmart, okay, if they know Costco or these big companies, they want to invest in those kinds of business. But because these are small tenants, local tenants, small medium business, big funds, they don't want to invest here because it's too much risk for them. But for you have to understand your market, and you have to understand their industries and your tenants. So as long as you understand that, you are good to invest in that kind of spaces, and you will have less competition. Okay, so for the cons, as I mentioned, since you don't have a lot of infrastructure, maybe you got a place on the outskirts of the city. Here in Texas, we call it the ETJ, okay, extraterritorial jurisdiction. So for example, in the ETJ, you don't have a lot of services. Usually you don't have sewer, so you have a septic. Okay, maybe if you purchase a flex space in the ETJ, chances are you have a sewer. Okay, so if you try to lease it, to rent it out for a manufacturing company, then you will have problems because they will use a lot of water, and that water will go to the sewer, okay, to the septic. Okay, so you will have problems. But if you rent it for a construction business or a roof company, they will not use a lot of water. They just gonna use the restroom, the toilet. Okay, that's it. So you will be good with flex tenants. It has also low clearing. Okay, it is not a manufacturing building with high ceiling clearings. It's not also a warehouse with high ceiling clearings. You don't need them. Okay, you just need some warehouse space for these companies. Maybe this roofing company, they have their supplies there, but they don't have like a lot of supplies. They will have just like 1 or 2 months supplies. Okay, so they don't have a lot of space or racks. So you usually see lower clearance here. Okay, but that's good because you don't need it. Okay, also it's a smaller space. This is smaller. Usually you can see tenants in industrial buildings for up to 500,000 square feet. Okay, these big companies like Amazon or manufacturing companies, automotive, all these companies. But for flex spaces, you have a small, you don't need all that space. Okay, for these construction, roofing, plumbing companies, electrician, less than 5,000 square feet is good. Okay, so you usually have less space. This is a small space. You have usually in these buildings you have only drive-ins. Okay, because this is like last mile. If you have some tenant that sells on Amazon, he will only need to go from the warehouse to Amazon. He will not need a big truck to distribute from one city to another. Okay, it's probably in the same city, so you only need drive-ins. Okay, but some flex spaces, they have high docks. Okay, maybe 1 or maybe 2, but it's not very usual because remember, you don't have a high clearing. Okay, so high docks with a small clearing, it's not good. It doesn't work well. Okay, so usually only drive-ins. Also, as I mentioned, you have smaller tenants. You have a small medium business. Okay, so if you have small tenants, they don't have to be bad tenants. Okay, they are just small companies. Okay, they are higher risk, of course. They don't have a lot of money like those companies listed on the New York Stock Exchange, of course. But if you make a good tenant screening, you can have a good small or medium business with maybe 10 years on the business, or maybe 5 to 10 years on the business. I recommend more than 5 years on the business. Okay, tenants, small businesses with less than 5 years on the business would maybe more risky for you. Okay, so you have shorter leases. Okay, you have shorter leases for these in the big spaces, in the big warehouses, big logistics spaces. You may see up to 10 or maybe 15 or more years leases. Okay, some build-to-suit leases, maybe more. Okay, because these are companies that they are very established, so or they probably made a build-to-suit and they sign a long-term lease. Okay, but in these flex spaces, since they are small companies, you cannot, if you sign a long-term lease with these kind of businesses, you are risking yourself. Okay, because you want to renew the lease every at most 5 years to check if the business is still alive or it's in good standing. Okay, so that's why you have 1 to 5 year leases here. Also, you have larger tenant pools. Okay, you have larger tenant pools. In the industrial or warehouse, you may see a single tenant building, as I mentioned. for a 500,000 square feet single tenant, just one tenant. For this, you will not see that. You may have a maybe 50,000 or maybe 100,000 flex space, which is a large space, but that space will not be leased by just one tenant. You have to lease it for multiple tenants, okay? Because this tenant usually lease less than 5,000 square feet, okay? So you have larger pools of tenants. Finally, it's harder to finance. It's harder to finance because it's more risk. It's more risk. So usually you go to the small banks or the community banks, as they say, okay? So because these community banks know the city, know the local market, they are more able or willing to lend you for this type of spaces, because it depends a lot on the market. And they may already know these tenants because the small banks usually have SBA or Small Business Administration loans, and these tenants are the clients for those type of loans, okay? So those banks may probably already know this kind of tenants, so they are more able or willing to lend you for building a space to rent for those tenants which are actually their clients, okay? So these are the pros and cons of flex spaces. In this video, I'll show you the pros and cons of investing on flex spaces. But tell me, have you targeted a flex space in your community or your city? Tell me about what did you see in that space? What pros and cons did you see? Leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you like it. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up. Helps me a lot to spread the word. And if you want to keep watching videos like this, hit the subscribe button. That way you will receive a notification every time I upload a new one. If you want to invest in commercial real estate, but maybe you don't have the money or the time to start in, you can join my exclusive investor club. My investors start investing from $20,000 and the best of it, it's totally stress-free. I manage everything. You can join by clicking on the link on the description below, and that way I will send you an email every time I discover a new investment opportunity for you. Thank you for reaching this point and watching the full video. I see you on the next one, but first I will leave you with 2 more videos here.